Hi. So this video is to explain a series of other videos that I'm going to do. And in those other videos, I'm going to read poems. And I want to emphasize that word read. I'm not going to perform the poems as though I were the author speaking to the audience, or as though I were a character in the poem speaking to someone. I'm going to be the reader of the poems. So if you want to think of it in terms of a performance, it would be as though I, a person, comes across a poem and reads it. The character would be a guy who's reading a poem. Now, that allows for an interesting kind of wrinkle, something that allows me a few things. For one, the poem can become multiple poems because I can imagine myself reading a poem under many circumstances. So for instance, I could imagine that I'm a man whose grandfather just passed away, and I'm going up to his house and up to his attic, and I open up a trunk and I see a journal, and I open it and I see this handwritten poem that I've never seen before, and I just read it. I read it out loud. And so the character I'm playing is the reader who's come across this poem. And I can come up with 100 different scenarios of why this man would read a poem. It might be because I love this particular poem, and at the end of the day, I open a book of my favorite poems and I start reading them. And that's who I am, the man reading the poem. Or maybe I have the poem committed to memory and I'm just going to read it. So that's one aspect of what I'm going to do. But there's another important aspect, and that is I'm not going to try to make a performance out of it to make the poem clear. I'm going to let the poem affect me however it might, as though I were this person reading the poem this particular time. And it might affect me in ways that have to do with my own personal circumstance at the time. So it might not be clear why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. But I'm doing this process more as a process of enjoying the reading of poetry. And that's what I want to show. I want to show how I can enjoy reading this poem. And so even if someone watching the video does not understand why I'm feeling, how I'm feeling at that moment from that line, because it might not seem to make sense in the poem itself, I want to convey how a person can read a poem like the one I'm reading and just enjoy it personally. And I'm going to let myself be in a free state because I'm going to try to work on my breathing before I deliver the poem so that my breathing is free and enjoyable, and that will translate to pretty volatile emotional availability. And so the emotions might jump around quite a bit. And again, you might not understand why I'm feeling that way for that particular poem, but what I'm trying to show is how someone can get into that state and then just enjoy the poem for himself. And that's the thing I'm trying to convey. How one might be in a free state of free breathing and pick up a poem as a catalyst to let his emotions roam and how he might enjoy that emotional ride, whatever it may be. So that's the end of this little description of what I'm going to do in the other series. And so I'll see you soon.